the Family Research Council released a report exporting LGBT ideology, the Biden administration's foreign policies priorities, ever since President Joe Biden took office in 2021. And, look, you can say this is, political rhetoric, but you can look at the record. It's objective. It's there. I mean, you cannot see this president speak without advancing, without talking about transgenderism and this whole perverse sexual agenda that the left is pushing to enslave and trap and destroy our children. That's what it is. I'm just going to be very straightforward. It's what it is. It is driven from the pit of hell, and it's designed to enslave our children and drag them into hell. That's what this is about. And that's why it's time that we stand up and we begin to fight for our children, fight for our homes, our families, our future, for the truth. Well, this report from the Family Research Council that came out today shows how this administration, the LGBT ideology, is not just something they're pushing here at home in our schools, not just something that, trying to redo women's sports and all this other stuff. This is being pumped out from the State Department all across America. President Biden and his State Department, they're using your tax dollars to force this ideology on poor nations who are desperate for American aid dollars, essentially engaging in cultural imperialism against countries that have no interest in flying the pride flag or redefining marriage or human sexuality. They have traditional values, and this flies in the face of what they believe and what they want for their children and for their country. Joining me now to discuss this important report is one of its co-authors, Arielle Del Turco, who is our director of the Center for Religious Liberty. Arielle, welcome back to Washington Watch. Good to see you.
Thank you for having me, Tony.
All right, so tell us about what you and your co-author, Chris Gasik, found and established in this report.
Yeah, so I had the idea for this report. I have years of experience tracking international religious freedom, and I watched great policies unfold under the Trump administration and Secretary of State Pompeo that really pushed religious freedom around the world. They spoke up on behalf of the persecuted. And after President Biden came into office, I just saw all of that fall off. And where I saw the attention redirected was to the LGBT issue, to pushing LGBT policies on countries around the world who have no interest in it, who don't want it. Yet at the same time, a lot of them rely on America's friendship, America's alliance, America's foreign assistance. So that is a lot of leverage for the Biden administration to use to coerce countries around the world to start adopting some of these radical LGBT policies. So when my co-author and I took a look at what the Biden administration was doing, what we found was really a systematic effort to infect all aspects of American foreign policy with LGBT policies.
So they're tying the adoption of these policies, which we don't even accept in the United States. Many states are pushing back, just like we're seeing with nearly 20 states now saying, no, we're not going to allow experimental surgeries on minors. They're saying they're pushing this in our foreign policy and they're linking it to foreign aid. Is that right?
Absolutely. And the Biden administration is using our human rights apparatus. We're using the State Department's human rights report to condemn other countries who have not embraced pro-LGBT policies like marriage, like legal gender recognition, which basically they want all of these countries to allow people to identify their own gender on birth certificates and driver's license. They're condemning countries for failing to adopt very radical policies that we adopted very recently. And as you said, this isn't even settled in the United States, yet we're being hypocritical by taking many of these policies that we adopted very recently and holding the world to this standard. And I think Americans would be very surprised at just how radical the United States is on many of these LGBT policies. Most of the world most of the world's population lives in countries that doesn't even affirm same-sex marriage. So we're looking at very different cultures that really don't appreciate this kind of ideological colonialism from the Biden administration.
Yeah, what's interesting about that, Arielle, that I discovered was at my time at the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom, and what the State Department, as this, you mentioned Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, who actually was the first to advance religious freedom as a number one foreign policy objective. But the resistance was so intense at the State Department because what the left has been doing is using the State Department to push this ideological agenda, this leftist agenda, out into foreign countries, only to have it come in the back door through the United Nations and say, well, everybody else is doing it, we got to do it too. And you're absolutely right. America is an outlier on many of these policies when you look globally. So what was the most alarming thing that you saw when you went through this report? What would you say, wow, I had no idea?
I think just how insidious this is throughout the administration. You mentioned the State Department personnel. They really do have a secular worldview that, first of all, doesn't understand religion, doesn't understand the importance of religious freedom, and at the same time is very motivated for these leftist social causes. We see in U.S. embassies around the world, at least 49 embassies that have staffers participate in pride parades and marches. And we've heard just from our connections with other pro-family activists around the world that these activists are very disheartened when they see the U.S. Embassy participating in pride marches in their countries. For them, what it sends is that the strongest country in the world, the United States, is marching through their capital city, and we're supporting an agenda that condemns their laws, that says, listen, your laws are not progressive enough, your laws are not Western enough, they're not secular enough, whatever the case may be. It's really, really condescending, and they feel that.
Final question for you, Arielle. Where can folks go to read a copy of this report?
Yeah, they can read the report at frc.org/exportingpride.
All right, Arielle Del Turco, great job. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.